Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make this spring wall hanging. And you can see this has been made with lots of green and blue squares in the background, and then the flowers have been appliqued over the top. So today I'm going to show you how you can do the background using a gridded Vilene. And the reason I've done this for two reasons. One, it's quicker, and two, it's more accurate. So you could just join all your squares together if you want to, but I'm going to show you how to do it much quicker and easier and hopefully more accurate. So I've brought the iron across and I've got my piece of Vilene, which you can see has got grids on it. So the important thing to remember is the glue side. Don't do what I did when I was making this. I laid all my pieces out beautifully, I pressed them and I realised I'd stuck the whole thing to my ironing pad. So always make sure that you've got the glue side, which is the bobbly side, you can feel it, that's the one looking at you. So I'm now going to take the blue squares and I'm going to line these up onto this Vilene. Now the piece I'm working with is only inch squares, but you can get 2.5 inch squares. However, even the lines on the inch square one are fine because you can line this up, and what we're doing is we're just butting all our edges together. I've probably cut it a little bit short for today's demonstration, but it's not the end of the world. You'll see how it goes together in a moment. So you can see in the spring one here that I've got lots of different blues and greens, and you can decide whether you want more sky or more grass. It's entirely up to you. So I'll just continue to lay this out. Actually, I'm going to move that over there. It's funny how you get a bit fussy with your scraps about where you want them to go. And these were all pieces that I'd already cut up. So just take your time lining them up. So now I'm going to start laying some green for the grass. I've got some here with bees on. Oh, actually, I don't want it next to that one. See, there I go again. I'm getting all fussy with it. I'm going to lay it over here. And put that one there. Nice brightly coloured one. That could be grass with flowers on. So I've laid them all out, and the next thing I'm going to do now is very carefully take the iron and just press, not moving it too much, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to move the squares around. I just want them to stick. Going to go over it again to make sure they have stuck, because what I don't want is any lifting when I go to the sewing machine. So this is our background. In an ideal world, I probably would have done it a bit longer and had another row of grass, but for the purposes of today, it's all about me showing you this technique. So I'm now going to take this over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I sew it. So before I go, it might be easier if I show you on this camera because it's closer. So I'm going to fold that top line over. Just press it gently with my fingers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to machine 1/4 inch all the way down there. When I've done that, I'm going to fold it again and machine 1/4 of an inch all the way down there. And I'm going to do that on all of my seams going in one direction first of all. So I'm just going to the sewing machine now to do that. So I'm going to fold it and do the next seam. So you can see that I've done all of the seams going one way. Now, in order for us to sew it the other way, and we want our seams to go in opposite directions, because if we were sewing this without the Vilene, we'd need our seams to butt together going opposite ways. So what I'm going to do now is where I've stitched, I'm just going to cut between the squares, missing the stitching. And I'm going to do that on all of them. So in between the square, missing the stitching. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to now fold these up this way because these are going to be sewn. And I'm going to push these in opposite directions. So you can see where I've snipped it, I'm now pushing these in opposite directions to make them nest together better. So I'm going to do that with all of them, and then I'm going back to the sewing machine to sew that seam. So I'm just going to push the seams in the opposite directions again. So this one's already going this way, so I've got to push that seam that way. The one behind it is going to go the opposite way. So I've stitched these and you can see how the back goes in opposite directions. Let me come down here. So you can see that seam's going that way and that seam's going that way. So I'm now going to press this. So this is the background of our hanging as we've got here, but obviously this one's much bigger. And as I say, if I'd been doing this again, I probably would have done another row. So then what you would do is whatever design you wanted on the front, so the other one's got these lovely spring flowers, and I always think of lilacs and yellow, very much of spring. But I've done some little snowdrops here, and all I've done is draw onto the bond web, and I've already put the bond web on these. So I'm just going to break the back of that and iron it on, just to give you an idea of what this would look like. So I've just placed the stem and the flower of a snowdrop on here. And if I was laying this out as I laid out the other one, I laid all my pieces of bonded fabric onto the background so I could see if I was happy with the placement of them. So I wouldn't just put this one on its own ordinarily, but for today I'm going to, just to show you. So you decide where you want the placement. And once you've got them all on and you're happy with the placement, then you just take your iron and press your picture or your flowers onto your background. So you can do as many as you want. You can do whatever you want. So we'll just go back to the original hanging and I'll just talk you through how that was finished off. So how I finished this off, I drew some green stems and drew some flowers in yellows and purples. As you all know, purple's my favourite colour. And placed them on. And when I was happy with the placement, then I pressed them on. And you can see that I have blanket stitched around the edge. Now, some of them I didn't blanket stitch at this point because I was going to use that as my quilting. So then I did a little yellow fillet, and this was cut at 1 inch. And then I did a greeny yellow border. This was cut at 2.5 inches. And of course, what other colour for binding? It's got to be purple. So once I'd got all this together, I just needed to do a little bit of quilting. So if I flip it over, I can show you. These are the flowers that I went around just to hold it in place. So I'd got a little bit of machine quilting. So as I appliqued them on, I went through all 3 layers for these. I then put a little sleeve on the back for hanging. And there we have our lovely spring wall hanging, and I really think it says spring. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. As always, have fun, make it your own, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.